أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على آل محمد وعجل وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى يوم الدين. We talked about in the last few sessions that we had that man needs to have a lifestyle. A lifestyle is composed from man's wants, wishes, and beliefs. A Muslim that believes in God subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot hide his faith, cannot hide his, because the practices that Islam has is so external, so powerful, that you cannot in any way hide this from people. For example, when it's recommended for us to say adhan, and actually we're crying and we are yelling in a way, calling people to our beliefs. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, that there's no God but Allah. Or the Rasalat of Nabi. Or Hayya ala khair al-amal, come and get for the best action. So a Muslim, his lifestyle, the way he lives, his identity is being shown. Especially, say, sisters that wear hijab. Everyone knows they're Muslim. In a way that this is, of course, for us living in this country, for us, it's not something that we hide. We share it with people and we are proud of it. But our religion is a religion that is really, again, I say is powerful. The expression of it is powerful, especially, non-Muslims, when they look at salat, for example, in congregation, how powerful that is. And the way that we worship, we go all the way to the ground in prostration for God. So there's no way we can hide our identity. So from the lifestyle, we talked about living a Muslim lifestyle. How should a Muslim lifestyle be like? We said that one of them, the embodiment of Tawheed, is how a Muslim lives. That when you see a Muslim from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, his life is full of the oneness of God, and people see that in him. He is doing everything for God. How can people miss this out? How can people see a Muslim and not think he's remembering God, he's talking about God, he's worshiping God? Everything he's doing is for him, even if it's for his family or work. Then we talked about wilaya, meaning the authority of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, the Prophet and his family. That this is a component in a Muslim's life, that his life centers around the love of Prophet and his family. Whenever he gets a time, he'll do ziyarat. Whenever he can, they'll do ziyarat ashura. Whenever they can, they'll listen to some of the beautiful lutmiyas that we have and cry for Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. This is a part of our Shia identity and lifestyle that we should have. Many of those that have reached high positions, they were told, instructed, to cry for Abi Abdullah, to cry for Imam Hussein in the morning and cry for Imam Hussein alayhi salam at night. That is the effect the tears for Imam Hussein alayhi salam have for us. That the followers of Imam Hussein actually, whenever they drink water, what do they say? They Salamullah ala al-Hussein. As we have in the traditions that Shi'atana, when you drink water, remember me, remember us, remember our thirst. So how can a lover of Abi Abdullah, Imam Hussein, his life not reflect Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam? How can a person live in his lifestyle not be incorporated with being a muntadir, waiting for Imam Zaman? This should be, very expressed and very vivid and clear in their lifestyle. That he's, in the day, he's waiting. He does dua ahd when he wakes up, for example. The dua that he asks his Mawlana, his Sahib al-Zaman to come back. And he makes dua, to see him. Allahumma arani tal'at al-rashida. Allow me to see the sun. Who is the sun? Imam al-Zaman. Wal-qurrat al-hamida. And he makes dua to be able to meet the Imam. He makes dua to be able to facilitate the coming back of his Imam. These are all expressions that we should have. Many of our ulama were like this. Some of them, like Marhum Ayatollah Bafqi, was really an Imam al-Zamani scholar. Some of our ulama, they're really Imam al-Zamani. For example, when the Tullab, the students, didn't have some supplies, the students, he says, okay, I'll come back, I'll do it, I'll take care of it for you. How? He went and did so much tawassul to Imam al-Zaman. Next week, somehow it got fixed. Somebody donated or something happened. At that time when they say Raza Khan came to the shrine of Bibi Ma'suma, and he was a very courageous person. He loved Imam al-Zaman. He was Imam al-Zamani. His mouth was always blessed with talking about Imam Mahdi. When he saw the wife, the family of the Shah come to the shrine of ladies Fatima and Ma'suma in Qom, he was surprised that how come they're coming in this way? Why are they not covering themselves appropriately? This is a holy place. So this Ayatollah confronted them and asked them, he says, if you're Muslim, then why do you come to do ziyarat in this way? And if you're not Muslim, then why do you even come to do ziyarat? I don't get it, I'm confused. So then they told Raza Khan, and Raza Khan came and himself and took this Ayatollah and beat him in a way, and they said all they could hear him say was, Ya Imam al-Zaman, Ya Imam al-Zaman, Ya Imam al-Zaman. He wasn't afraid of the king or his family or whatever, because he's an Imam al-Zaman person. His entire lifestyle, it has the fragrance of Imam al-Zaman. Brother or sister, is our life like this? Do we have our lifestyles? Is it truly Ahlul Bayti that we remember them, we cry for them? When we remember them, they are remembering us. Is it in a way that we love just to hear any type of mad for them? Is it in a way we love to hear the Fada'il of Ali ibn Abi Talib? Is a way that when we hear, for example, the enemies of Ali, that we get so upset with them? You know, one of the enemies of Ali alayhi salam is Muawiyah. Muawiyah in hadith has nothing. Muawiyah, did you ever try to find manaqib of Muawiyah? There's no manaqib, there's no fada'il that the Prophet said. Even in Sahih Bukhari, very pro-Khalifa book, he doesn't have any manaqib in the book for Sahaba or companions. There's a chapter, it just says the virtue of remembering Muawiyah, that's it. There's no manaqib for him. And that is why Nasa'i, he is actually one of the top 6 Sunni scholars. He said, you wrote this book, Ikhtisas of Amir al-Mu'mineen, this book, Fada'il of Ali alayhi salam. Why don't you read some Fada'il of Muawiyah? Why don't you read this? And he, as a Sunni scholar, says, the only Fada'il I know about him is that the Prophet made dua that he will, inshallah, never become filled from eating. He will never become filled from eating. That's the only thing I know from him. And this Sunni scholar, he was beaten so much that they killed him then, Nasa'i. One of the Sahih said, one of the books of the 6 main books of the Sunni, Nasa'i. So you see that a person who loves Ali alayhi salam, who loves him, also has hatred and tabarri of their enemies. It makes it part of their deed. Some of our scholars would read the Fada'il of Ali, what would happen to Amir al-Mu'mineen, and every time they would read it, they would cry. Some of our ulama that wrote these books to defend Amir al-Mu'mineen, they did it with tears. Ayatollah Mir Hamid Lakhnawi, he's an Indian scholar. Maybe if you haven't heard of him. I don't know here, has anyone heard of Ayatollah Mir Hamid Hussain Lakhnawi? You have heard of him? Sahib Abaqat? Abaqat al-Anwar. One of the greatest books we have defending Ali alayhi salam is from an Indian scholar in Lucknow, India. At that time where Lucknow was like Najaf in India, they wouldn't go to Najaf for ijtihad. In Lucknow, they would become mujtahids. So this Indian scholar who has his book, Abaqat al-Anwar, the concise version of this book is 20 volumes. They abridged it and made it short to 20 volumes. One of the volumes, just each hadith from Imam Ali is mentioned. One of the volumes is this, Hadith al-Nur. That he would get a hadith and Fada'il and Manaqib of Imam Ali and look at Sunni books to find it. That Ali alayhi salam and the Prophet were created thousands of years before Adam. The Nur of Ali. It's called Hadith al-Nur. That Ali alayhi salam and the Prophet were created as light before Adam. And he brings about 40, 50 sources from Ahlul Sunnah that this hadith is in your books. When he lived that lifestyle, that Ahlul Bayti lifestyle, that whenever they would mention the musibat of Imam Hussein, of Ahlul Bayt in front of him, out. Look at the beginning of his book. They said, this Mir Hamid Hussein, he would pass out. They wouldn't mention what happened to Ahlul Bayt because he loved them so much. He could not bear it. And one time they say a person went on the pulpit and recited the musibat of Imam Hussein, and they saw Sayyid had passed out. That is how he wrote Abaqatul Anwar. So see, there are ulama, our scholars, those that love Ahlul Bayt, some of the people that, I'm not going to mention any names, some of them would write Imam Hussein on the sand, on dust, on sand, and just cry so much that it said Imam Hussein, and that would become mud and filled, and then would write another Hussein on the dust and sand until it got full. So that's the second part, is that we need to incorporate Ahlul Bayt as much as we can in our lives. That is how you will know God. Bina ubidallah, bina urifallah. Through us, God is known. Through us, God is worshipped. They are the sarat. They are ma'adin al-rahmah. They are the source of Allah's mercy. So Tawheed should not be hidden. A person that truly worships God, you will see it throughout their lifestyle. Everything they do, even when they want to go on vacation, it's for Allah. Wherever they go, they want to go. You ask them, go to the most fanciest and nicest of places. They say, no, I'd rather go to Karbala, for example. I'd rather go to, for example, Hajj or Umrah. The third thing that we started talking about, and that is that a mu'min has to realize who he is. Who are we? What is our definition? What is insan? Because people are confused. They don't even know why we're here. Many people today don't even know the purpose of life. They think that they have a purpose, but according to some of the statistics, Americans, about 20% of them, wonder if I can have a better purpose. 20% of them think about this daily. Another 20% think about this weekly. Do I have a better purpose in life? They're confused. Why am I even here? They think their purpose maybe is, I don't know, just to go to work, just to help someone, feed some animals, maybe have some pets, and that's it, khalas. But the way that a Muslim, why are we here? Very beautifully in Misbah al-Sharia, the Prophet says, Al-Nabi, man arafa nafsa, faqad arafa rabba. And we talked about this hadith. Whoever knows himself will know God. And we ask this question, what kind of knowledge do I have of myself that I will know God with? What am I? Who am I? What are we, brothers and sisters? What do we say in our tashahhud about the Prophet? Man arafa nafsa, faqad arafa rabba. Whoever knows himself knows his Lord. What kind of knowledge of ourselves do we have that when I know myself, I know Allah? Is it my name? If I know my own name, I know Allah? No. What component about me and about humans do we need to have so that we know Allah? We know our faqr. We know our need, you can say. When I know my need and I know that everything around me is in poverty in reality, even this pulpit, even this carpet that's here, myself, yourself, anyone here create themselves? Raise your hand if anyone created themselves. No, of course not. Anything here is self-sufficient? No. When I understand that I am in need, then I will understand who Allah is. Because Allah bestows those beings that have need and gives them what they need and gives them life. He gives them in a way to be sustained. So man arafa rabba, whoever understands that I am faqir, I am in need. Is our need to God only for the beginning and then we don't need Him anymore? Some people, they view God in a way that He constructs, He builds, like an engineer, a contractor. You know, when you have an engineer contractor, you want to build something, you only need them from the beginning. After that, you don't need them because that building is going to be standing. Yeah, maybe once, you might need the electrician or to do some service, but you really don't need them anymore. That's not how life is. Actually, one of the best ways, that's one of our philosophers said, if you really want to know how you are, who you are, is everyone here, there was a little ball that was going around. Put that ball in your head. Write down, put that ball in your mind. What color was it, red or orange or whatever? Put that in your mind and have it circled. That's something you created in your mind. That's in your mind right now. Now when you stop to think about it, it disappears. It's gone. It will only exist in your mind when you give it existence, when you think about it. So 1 millisecond that you forget about it, woof, it's gone. Bad we are with God. Man arafa nafsa faqad arafa rabba. Whoever knows themselves, they know that it's as if that, like that ball in the mind, that God gives us existence on and fa'an. Every millisecond He is giving us existence and existence and existence. And if there's no tajdeed of this existence, replenishment of this existence will be gone. Don't ever think that we are self-sufficient. Know that our faqr and our need comes from, gets replaced from Allah. So this brings us to this topic that we talked about. It is being a slave of God, being a servant of Allah. That is another type of identity and lifestyle that we need to have. That a person walks as if his back is crooked. How does a person walk like that? He's humble always. He's always thinking of God, and he's in the realm of ubudiyat. He's thinking, what does God want from me? He's never in the state of istikbar. What does istikbar mean? Arrogance. Who is the arrogant one? Who did istikbar first? Shaitan. Shaitan was proud. So ubudiyat is our lifestyle, should be as an abd. That when we leave from this masjid, or that we're here actually, all we are trying to do is make ourselves a better slave of God, a better servant of Him. Because a servant does not owe anything. We talked about this, and because maybe there's new faces. We said that in the Bible, the word servant has been used around 130 times in the New Testament. 130 times in the New Testament, the word servant. But actually, they looked at one of the oldest. Greek isn't the oldest, but in some versions, Greek, I believe maybe Aramaic might be the oldest language that you can understand the New Testament. But in the Bible, in Greek, it's translated as the word slave. Because it's literally, this Christian scholar is saying, this word in the Bible is actually said slave, but people didn't translate it as slave. Because slave is too harsh. So they translate it as servant. Because a servant serves. Maybe gets some money, maybe has some free will. But a poor slave doesn't have anything. Poor slave is owned. So therefore you see that to talk about this concept, and this identity that we must have, this lifestyle, is that we are slaves. Is it anything but this? Are we owned or not? Who is our owner? Allah. Even when we have children, God gives us these children. Are we the owners of these children, of this child? No. Inna lillah, Quran says. We belong to Him. We are responsible for them. And we will be asked in the day of judgment for them. Why did you bring them this way? Why did you do that? Why did you not take care of them? But not about if you're the owner or not. We're not owner of ourselves. We're not even owner of ourselves in reality. Allah owns everything. So when you understand this, man arafa nafsa, whoever understands that he's just an abd, he's just a slave of God. One thing that might come to mind is this, is that, isn't that bad? And this was one of the preachers were saying is, how can I tell a congregation that you're a slave of God, that you're not a servant? Because a slave has no desires by himself. Everyone here has the aspirations. Everyone has desires. In today's time period, we talked about some of the philosophies. Man really just wants God to help him out with retaining his own goals. He just needs help from God. God, help me become rich. God, help me become successful. You know, in some cultures, when it's New Year, it's almost New Year here, they tell each other, may you be rich, may you be rich. This is their main dua that they do for each other when it's their New Year. It's just rich and money and rich and money. It's becoming so bad that many cultures today, they say your child must be a doctor. Everyone, your child you have to be a doctor. And the children listen. And then why? Because of fame and money, that's it. And then when the parents say, they actually have to see, patients that are sick, they're like, that seems like it's, something extra. I just wanted you to be a doctor so you can have prestigious, you can be a physician to have a nice income. But now you're dealing with all these sick people, especially during the time of COVID. Nobody, so this is the intention that parents have. Not to help. A doctor's intention should be to cure people, to help people. Not just to drive a nice car, not just to be prestigious. Yes, I'm a doctor sometimes. Not to put physicians down, but sometimes they have to make sure everyone knows they're a doctor. Did you know, by the way, I'm a doctor, I'm a physician. Well, no, you're coming to serve people, help them. So we have become so far away from being a slave of God, and that our intentions have become so mixed with money and aspirations that when you tell someone, be a slave of God, they say, no, I don't want to be a slave of God. I have my own dreams. You're telling me change my dreams? I have aspirations and God better help me or else he's not a good God. Just help me attain what I want. And then when something happens, they become religious and God doesn't give them what they want. So no, I don't like that God. So it's the way that we think that the best fakhr, the best honor you can have is being a slave of God. Look at Imam Ali. After the Prophet, is there anyone, we talked about his manaqib, is there anyone greater than Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam? Every time we read about his life, it shakes us, it stuns us, it amazes us. George Jordan, a Christian scholar, he said, some of my friends visited him in Lebanon before he passed away. He said, I would ditch, he's Christian, I would ditch school and I would go and read Nahj al-Balagha by the river. I would ditch school to read Nahj al-Balagha. I loved Ali alayhi salam. He said, maybe I read it 600 times or something, Nahj al-Balagha. And he wrote, the book of Voice of Human Justice. And he compared Ali alayhi salam to the UN Charter of Human Rights. And he says that the human rights of Ali alayhi salam is better than this United Nations Charter of Human Rights. Christian. But you understand from Imam Ali his greatness, that you see that what he says, what is the best thing for him, that you see it is, when we read here, let's recite Salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad wa Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Your salawat had a fast effect right when you said it. Alhamdulillah, found it. كان من دعاء أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام إلهي كفى به عزا أن أكون لك عبدا. Sufficient for me in terms of honor is to be your abd, is to be your slave. وكفى بي فخرا أن تكون لي ربا. And sufficient for me in terms of fakhr is that you are my Lord. So you see that Ali alayhi salam, his greatness comes from his ubudiyyah, being a slave. This God that we have, and I'm going to now complement it with some of the beautiful sayings of Sayyida Fatima alayhi salam. You know, sometimes I was at a wedding actually before I came here. Not for myself, I'm already married, but I was at a wedding, and in this wedding, you know, I was talking about Imam Ali and Lady Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, and I mentioned this to him, and I thought about this before. I says, what does that mean when you say that Ali alayhi salam talked about Sayyida Fatima? I said, ni'mal awn, you know, ila ta'atillah. You've heard of this hadith, I'm sure. Ni'mal awn ila ta'atillah. That Sayyida Fatima, after their marriage, Imam Ali described her this way: she is the best awn, helper to God's obedience. Does Ali alayhi salam need help for God's obedience? No. I was saying that, you know, marriage complements one another. It brings taskeen because it complements. Ali alayhi salam was helped. It was helped by Sayyida Fatima. They were kuf to each other, and they complemented each other. So when you talk about, and inshallah in Fatima we'll talk about this, if it wasn't for Ali alayhi salam, there would be no kuf and peer for Sayyida Fatima. She would not be married. So therefore, whatever fada'il you tell of Imam Ali, you're also telling about Sayyida Fatima, because they're kuf of each other. They're at the same level. So if you talk about the manaqib of one side, you're actually talking about the manaqib of the other. She says very beautifully in the khutbah that she has in Sermon Fadak, and we're going to relate it to Ubudiyyah. It talks about this, and hopefully in Fatimiyya will talk more about this, is that when you look at the context of this speech, this sermon was given when her rights were usurped. This sermon was given when she was oppressed, when there was faqdun Nabi, she lost the Prophet. And how hard is it to speak at such a time when you're grieving for two things: faqdun Nabi and dhulmun wasi. We'll talk about this hopefully. You know, when Salma comes to her and says, you know, the daughter of Rasulullah, kayfa asbahti? How did you sleep? How did you wake up last night? And she says, with karb, with calamity, with difficulty. And you know how mothers are. Mothers hide their pain from others. Mothers are like this. The women know this better. The husbands maybe are less strong. But women hide their pain because they never want to upset their children. Imagine Sayyida Fatima hiding her pain, her bruised arm, her broken rib, sometimes wearing hijab in front of Ali alayhi salam, because we have narrations. I wish these narrations were not true, but we even have narrations that her eye was injured. Even her eye was injured. So at that time of karb, she says, how did you wake up? I was in karb. But she never mentions anything about her body, the pain that she is, because she is dying slowly and slowly. In this time period of Fatimiyya, the neighbors, everyone is wondering, they're saying that Fatima bint Muhammad is not going to make it. She's becoming skinnier and lighter. But at this time, she says, two things bother me. Faqdun Nabi, that I missed the Prophet, because she had the opportunity of witnessing from 142,000 prophets, the final, last, and best messenger of God come. Faqdun Nabi. In the second, which happened to be her father, in dhulmun wasi, the dhulm they're doing to Ali ibn Abi Talib. I cannot wake up, not her body pains again. So at that time, when this dhulm happened and this separation from her and her father happens, she gives one of the best speeches ever recorded, possibly, at least from the ladies, from Balaghatun Nisa, a Sunni source. Ibn Tayfur mentions it, even though he's Sunni, he's not Shia. He brings one of the khutbahs, and actually, you know, this khutbah is, in a way, talking about the khulafa and the khalifa, about the government at that time. And he still brings this, khutbah. In this speech from her, Again, Sunni source. Who's the source? Ibn Tayfur of Balaghat al-Nisa. No, Shia source. We have Shia source as well, but from Sunni sources. Beautifully about ubudiyat, a muwahhida, as I again said. Do you want to know someone whose lifestyle is completely tawheed? Look at Sayyida Fatima. If you want to see someone whose complete lifestyle is walaya, look at this as-siddiqa as-shahida. That she became shaheed for walaya. She became martyred for it. If you want to see an abid, and an abd of God, abida, look at Sayyida Fatima. She says, ابتدأ الأشياء لا من شيء كان قبلها وأنشأها بلا اهتداء أمثلة امتثلها. He originated things not from anything that existed before them and created them without examples to follow. The Sayyida Fatima is saying Allah created and originated things. He did not have any examples. Dhulm is happening. They're stealing fadak. You're oppressing Ali alayhi salam, but you're talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're introducing Allah, this mawahida, saying that look, God originated things. Dear brother and sister, we talked about this Thursday night. When you look at, in Friday prayers too, when you look at some of the discoveries that mankind has, you looked at one of the laboratories recently in California, they performed nuclear fusion, for example, and which is the combining of atoms. And they said they had more energy come out than more energy that was in. So if some say one of the most important scientific discoveries that we have that can allow clean energy. I'm not a nuclear scientist. I don't know this stuff, but they're saying, from just what they're saying, is that the clean source of energy, because of nuclear fission, which is the separation of atoms, is a dirty type of energy, not fusion. But when you look at this, it says that origination, Allah didn't have examples. Well, what gave us that idea to put atoms together to create energy? That is the energy of stars. This sun that we have that is burning for 4.6 billion years today is using nuclear fusion, and it's still half of its lifespan. It's about 10 billion years is its lifespan, just working and giving heat and energy in a way that we cannot imagine. Just those that just today in California are saying just put solar panels, your entire house, just how far are we from the sun? Your entire house will have energy just from getting a little bit of the light of the sun. So we learn, she is saying, as an abida, we learn from nature. We learn from this nature that God created. Unfortunately, in the secular society, we have taken God away from science. We could never say that nature, who created this nature? God. So God created this system that, for example, even I gave the example in another place of needles. I don't know who here is afraid of needles. Did you bring the shots, doctor, to those that aren't vaccinated before Fatima? I'm kidding. Who here is afraid of needles? Where did we learn needles from? From mosquitoes. From mosquitoes. So a lot of the discoveries we have is nothing but copying nature, which God created. And therefore she's saying Allah is the God. He originated things without examples to follow. كونها بقدرته وذرها بمشيته من غير حاجة منه إلى تكوينها. He did not have any need for all this creation. No need whatsoever. It's wajib al-wujud. Self-sufficient existence. When you're wajib al-wujud, you always exist. You can never say who created God. That's a wrong question. He always existed, because if you say who created God, then you're implying that then he is mumkin al-wujud. You're already implying that he's contingency. He's wajib al-wujud. He is self-sufficient, no need whatsoever. وَلَا فَائِدَ لَهُ فِي تَسْوِيرِهَا. And this is the sentence that I'm going to finish tonight to learn ubudiyat from the sayings of Sayyida Fatima. Allah created this vast universe. Allah created this, originated without examples to follow. إِلَّا تَثْبِيتًا لِحِكْمَتِهِ. An abd looks at the universe and walks around, his lifestyle is a way that he is always impressed by his Lord. And he looks at the hikmah of God, the wisdom of God. That same God that allowed in this universe to put two atoms together to create energy in such detail. That's the same God that has created space so vast that, when you mentioned this, about 28 billion light years is the farthest sun that we have. 28 billion light years. Meaning that if that star is like our sun, that its lifespan is 10 billion years, by the time its light is coming to us, that star is probably a supernova or exploded already. We're just looking at history of 28 billion years ago. That is how vast, and how fast does light travel? 6 trillion miles per hour. 6 trillion miles per hour it travels, and it took 28 billion light years for me just to see its light. That is the vastness of Allah. And we as Abd, we question Allah's wisdom. We question Allah, something small happens to me, one up and down I have in life, monetary issue. We think that maybe God isn't enough for me. Maybe we need another God that is more powerful. Do we need another God that is more powerful? Do we need another God that is more wise? Is he not sufficient for us, as the Quran says? So the Abd thinks about God and thinks about the creation of Allah and sees that same God that has mastered, the creation and is guiding everything. He's the one that has created and then guides. Is he not trying to guide me? Do you not realize, if you're an Abd, if this path you're going to take from A to B is just straight, like a highway that makes you fall asleep, or like a speech that I give that makes you fall asleep, if it's straight, you will never grow. If he always fed you, if you're always under the sunlight, and there's no storm, how are you going to grow? You're just fed and relaxed and calm. Alhamdulillah. But when you have trials and tribulations, when you are tested with wealth one day, you're tested with poverty one day, with wellness one day, and sickness one day, having lots of family one day, life, those that are older know this, life is this. It's ups and downs. The first half of life is saying salam to everyone. The second part of life is saying Khudafiz and goodbye to everyone in this world. Seems like Siri likes my speech, mashallah. Siri, mashallah. Are you Muslim yet, Siri? Okay. All right. So anyways, وَتَنْبِيهًا عَلَى طَاعَتِهِ وَإِظْهَارًا لِقُدْرَتِهِ وَتَعَبُّدًا لِبَرِيَّتِهِ. So the same Allah that gives us trials and tribulations, and we say is Hakim from His creation, is for us to obey Him. Then we, brothers and sisters, as an abd, as a lifestyle of ubudiyyat, we know that with these tests and tribulations that God wants, all He wants us to do is reach hattu tamam, reach whatever we can and become perfect. Hatta tamam means completion. Because that's what God is doing in this universe. Everything that is existing, He is in a way putting it in order, so for them to reach completion, and us in the same way. Either it is through poverty, through richness, through whatever test we have, through loneliness. So sometimes, having too many friends, all these ups and downs, Allah wants us to reach hatta tamam. And every time, my brother, my sister, you go through a test in life, a different stage in life, you pass it, you become better and stronger. You become more complete. And therefore, we understand that the purpose of life is man arafa nafsa faqad arafa rabba. Whoever understands themselves as an abd, as in contingency, understands wajib al-wujud, which is self-existence without any type of need, necessary existence. And therefore, he has trust in God because God is Hakim. He submits to God because God is all-powerful. And his life is in a way that all he is just trying to do, and from the morning to night, trying to see what God wants for him, because that God that loves him just wants him to become complete. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى